This week's main topic is number patterns and sequences, and I will just go through our maths outline for this week. So on Monday, which is today, we are going to go through the introduction to number patterns and sequences on this video here now. On Tuesday, we are going to continue with number patterns and sequences. On Wednesday, we are going to revise data in conjunction with RTE School Hub. Thursday, we are going to go back to number patterns and sequences, and on Friday, we will revise line and angles again in conjunction with RTE School Hub. We will continue with mental maths activities and short maths challenges as well throughout the week. So our learning objectives this week for number patterns and sequences. So the first one, explore, recognise and record patterns in number. Our second objective, explore, extend and describe, which is explain the rule for sequences. And finally, to use patterns as an aid in the memorisation of number facts. So we'll start off this maths topic like we do with all other maths topics, and I want you to think about what you already know about number patterns and sequences. Maybe there are some words you associate with this topic. So if you just pause this video and feel free to record them or to write them down in your copy now, or if you want to just think about them in your head, that's fine too. So just pause the slide. Okay, so maybe you might have some of these words written down, or you may have thought about them in your head. So I'm going to read through our maths vocabulary or our maths language for number patterns and sequences, and we will go through this vocabulary as we move through the chapter. So we have repeating pattern, pattern, sequence, increasing, decreasing, core, term, and rule. Now, core, term, and rule may be new to you for this topic. So we will go through this vocabulary or these words in the next few slides. So we have two main types of patterns. So the first pattern, or the first type of pattern we're going to be looking at, is repeating patterns, and the second type of pattern that we're going to be looking at is increasing and decreasing patterns or sequences. So repeating patterns. So repeating patterns is the repetition of symbols, shapes and numbers that recur in a specific way. So the repetition or the repeating of a pattern. Okay, and if you look at this picture here, we have cubes, and you'll recognize the cubes from the classroom. And here we can see there's a repetition of colour. Alright, so have a look at these cubes. What colours do you see? So I can see blue, I can see red, and I can see yellow. So there's three different colours. I'm going to say what I see and see if I can figure out, is there a repetition of colour or a repetition of a pattern? So what do I see? Blue, red, yellow, blue, red, yellow, blue, red, yellow, blue, red, yellow, blue, red. So I can see from verbalizing or from saying what I see that there is a pattern. Blue, red, yellow, blue, red, yellow. So what will come after the red cube, the last red cube? Blue, red, yellow. We are going to look at what we've just done in the previous slide in a little bit more detail. So let's look at my not so clean whiteboard. So you will see our learning objective is written down on the whiteboard. I am learning to identify and continue repeating patterns. So again, the first step is to look at the pattern and name the colours you see. So in your head, I want you to name the colours you see. So you can pause this slide. So we have pink, green and orange. Now what I want you to think about is how many colours can you name before the list of colours repeats itself. So if you look at the tip down at the bottom, say the pattern out loud. So let's say the pattern out loud and we'll see how many colours we can name before the list of colours repeats itself. So we have pink, green, orange, pink, green, orange. So we can see that there are 3 colours before the list of colours repeat itself, and they are pink, green and orange. You will remember on one of the first slides we looked at maths language and the word core was on it. Okay? The core is the list that repeats itself. Okay, so what 3 colours here are repeating themselves? Pink, green and orange. So that is the core. And a repeating pattern should have a clearly identifiable core, so the shortest sequence that repeats. So we know that the sequence that we're repeating is pink, green, orange. What will come next? Pink, green, orange, pink, green, orange. So if I was to ask you to continue this pattern, what is the next colour you will put on? It would be pink. Pink, green, orange, pink, green, orange. So to recap quickly on this slide, the list that repeats itself is called the core of the pattern. So this pattern here has a core of 3. You can see the 3 colours that are circled in black, since it repeats every 3 colours. So you will see pink, green, orange, pink, green, orange, pink, green, orange. So the core is the pink, green, orange. So with this example, I want you to explore. Okay, so again, I want you to think about what we have discussed in the previous slides. So I want you to look at the pattern, name the colours you see. How many colours can you name before the list of colours repeats itself? So you're finding out what the core list is, the core of the pattern, okay? And then that will help you figure out how to repeat the pattern. Pause this slide and then I will discuss it with you. So let's look at number 1. Look at the pattern and name the colours you see. So you would have seen the colours blue, red, green and yellow. And then when you said the pattern out loud, you would have said blue, red, green, yellow, blue, red, green, yellow. So you were looking for the core, okay? And remember, the core is the list that repeats itself. And this pattern has a core of 4 colours. So the sequence that is repeating itself is blue, red, green, yellow. And you'll see then that is repeated here. Blue, red, green, yellow. So if I asked you to continue this with your cubes, it would be blue, red, green, yellow. So let's look at different patterns. So I'm using glitter star stickers that I had here at home, and I want you to pause the slide again and see if you can recognize the pattern. Okay, so we're going to say it out loud. Gold star, silver star, gold star, silver star, gold star, silver star. So the core is just 2 parts this time, gold and silver. And then if we repeat it, gold and silver, gold and silver. So if I asked you to continue on with this repeated pattern, it would be gold, silver. So if you look around the house, maybe you might find some objects that you could create patterns of your own. So after we're finished this little video, maybe you could try a few at home and maybe get a younger sibling, or if there's someone that could try and finish the pattern. Okay, this pattern looks a little bit more difficult, but we're going to use the strategies that we've been looking at in the previous few slides to try and help us. So this question here has been taken from the Planet Maths book. So if we go back and think about what a repeating pattern is. So a repeating pattern is the repetition of symbols, shapes, numbers, colour, etc. that repeat in a specific way. So to help us with this question, I got out the cubes and laid them out exactly as they were in the book. So if you look here, I'll put my arrow down, if it'll come, it will. And I have repeated the pattern that was in the book. So we're going to look for the repeating pattern, so the core. And this one's a little bit hard to verbalize, so the way I did it was 1 cube, 2 cubes, 3 cubes, 4 cubes, 1 cube. What do you think comes next? So let's do it again. 1 cube, 2 cubes, 3 cubes, 4 cubes. 1 cube, 2 cubes, 3 cubes, 4 cubes. And it's important here that you continue the core pattern. So if you have a look, there's 4 terms or 4 items in this pattern. So that is repeated exactly like this picture down here. It might help to draw the pattern out, or if you have materials like cubes at home to help you with questions like this. So our core is going to be repeated just here to complete the pattern. So the second type of pattern we're looking at today is increasing and decreasing patterns, so sequences. So sequences are lists of things, usually numbers, but they may be letters either, that are arranged in a particular order. So the example that we're really going to be looking at to show you this concept is 2, 4, 6, and you'll see we have to finish off this sequence here. So sequences can increase, so that was one of our maths vocabulary words, and you'll see it here in green. So to increase is to get bigger, or to decrease, which is to get smaller, which is why we sometimes call them growing patterns or a shrinking pattern. So the first job we have to do here is we have to figure out if this sequence is getting bigger, so if it's increasing, or if it's shrinking, if it's getting smaller, decreasing. So 2, 4, 6. So what is the difference between the terms? Okay, and the terms here are 2, 4, and 6. We know that the sequence is increasing, so it's a growing pattern. So the rule of a sequence is to explain how it is ordered. So we need to figure out what the rule is. What is the difference between the terms? So before we go any further with the sequence, if you look at the tip at the bottom of the page, it says, when extending sequences in your copy, so when completing the sequence, leave an empty line below the sequence to allow space to write in the difference between the terms. So we're going to have to determine what the rule is. So we need to identify the rule in order to extend the sequence. 2, 4, 6. So this is a numerical sequence, so it's based on numbers. So we need to look at each term, 2, 4, 6, and identify what has happened between it and the next term. So the first one we're going to look at is the relationship between 2 and 4. And in the tip below we said leave an empty line below the sequence to allow space to write in the difference between the terms. If you look here, we have plus 2. So if we count on from 2 to 4, we count on 2 places. So 2 plus 2 is 4. So that's the difference between the first 2 terms, 2 and 4. So now we need to identify what the difference is between 4 and 6. And we know if we count on between 4 and 6, the difference is plus 2. So 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 plus 2 is 6. So now we have to figure out what the next number is in the sequence. But if we follow the rule, which is plus 2, 6 plus 2 is 8. So now we have 2, 4, 6, 8. And to find out what the next number is, we're going to follow the rule, which is plus 2, 8, plus 2 is 10. So now our sequence is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. The difference between each term is plus 2, so we're adding on 2 numbers. You might recognize this pattern from your 2 times tables, and in particular your skip counting, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So let's have a look at this sequence here, 22, 33, 44 and 55. So is this increasing or is it decreasing? Correct, the sequence is increasing, so it's getting bigger. So now what we need to do is we need to examine each term. Remember, your terms are 22, 33, 44 and 55, and we need to identify what has happened between it and the next term. So the first one we're going to look at is 22 and 33. So what has happened? We know it has increased, and we know if we add 10 onto 22, we get 32, and we just need to add one more on, so we get 33. So the difference between 22 and 33 here is plus 11. Okay, let's move on to the next 2 terms, 33 and 44. So we need to see what the difference is. And again, the difference here between 33 and 44 is plus 11. So we're increasing by 11. So you can see here now maybe that the rule is plus 11, increasing by 11 every time. So to keep going with the sequence, what is the difference between 44 and 55? Plus 11. So if I was to ask you, what do you think the next number in the sequence will be? How will you work that out? Just pause the video and think about that. So 55 plus 11 is 66. So the next number in the sequence will be 66. And again, you might recognize these terms or these numbers from your 11 times table. So if you're skip counting in your 11s, 22, 33, 44, 55, 66, 77, 88 and so on. So for a quick recap on what we learned today, we have 2 types of patterns. We have repeated patterns and then we have sequences. So when we increase or decrease patterns. So to look at repeated patterns first. So we said that a pattern is a repetition of symbols, shapes, numbers, colours, etc. that repeat in a specific way. And we looked at identifying the core, so the shortest sequence that repeats, and that will help us to solve the pattern, or to solve the problem that we may be asked. And then we also looked at a very important tip, which was to say the pattern out loud if possible, or to use materials that you may have at home to model the pattern. We then looked at numerical sequences, so for example our 2, 4, 6, 8, or 22, 33, 44. So I suppose firstly it's important to determine if it is an increasing or a decreasing pattern, so if it's getting bigger or if it's getting smaller. So we need to identify the rule then in order to extend the sequence. So looking at each term and trying to decide or to identify what has happened between it and the next term. Okay, so did the number increase? Did it decrease? By how much? And record it. So remember to leave a space underneath the sequence, and that will help you work it out. So figuring out the rule of a sequence will explain how it is ordered. I hope that makes patterns and sequences a little bit easier to understand. I know this video clip has gone on for a little bit longer than I intended, So I'm just going to put up a few short little exercises on your PowerPoint for today that if you feel you want a little bit of practice, you can give them a go. So they're on the PowerPoint. Okay, best of luck. Again, if there's anything you find a little bit difficult, make sure and email.